Now, I know you're always going on about how much you hate trailers, but man, when I saw the official A24 trailer for this and it was quoted as a nerve shredding, audio driven nightmare, I was like, wow, what a great review of this movie. I got to go check it out. Because today we're talking about the undertone. Do you want to tell me about that review? I feel like you know somebody that wrote that, right? Then don't you know
Oh
some
my
Hollywood
God, no,
insider or
what a
somebody?
secret, what a surprise. Well, so you actually set me up for my perfect bit, which is this movie is actually in some ways a milestone movie for Screen Love Affair, but it's also a milestone movie for us as a threesome pairing here for the podcast because it was called The Undertone when Adriana and I watched it at Fantasia for the first time last year, and now it is just Undertone with lowercase u. So
Drop
this is
the.
really the bane of
That
the bane of
A24
our
rebranding.
existence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Drop the and make it lowercase. But yeah, no, so this really is here to just mess us up for either taking away the or adding the when we don't need the. So, that's going to be a fun one to
I feel like
handle.
well,
But
that's
yes,
been a recurring bit for us, right? Is it
from like
the
day
monkey?
one,
Is it
Yeah, we're here talking about the
companion, the
Nosferatu.
companion.
The companion,
Yeah. Oh,
I've been doing, even in the last movie, I was just like, oh, so we're going to talk about the Project Hail Mary, and I just looked at Shea as he was like, is he fucking with me? I can't tell.
The Project Hail Mary. Well,
But
honestly,
yeah,
let us know if you guys would buy merch that has in movie titles where it
drop
doesn't belong. Yeah, drop. So we'll put like the Jaws and things like that. We can make merch and definitely
or
capitalize on the
the
additions of
Godfather,
the.
Just Godfather. Boom.
Yeah, well, sometimes
Lowercase
it works.
g.
Huh? Yeah,
Yep.
lower, drop that G, dude. Let me see the swoop. Yes. For those that aren't aware, we were quoted in the first trailer for this film, Undertone. Our review from Fantasia was picked up for the marketing, which was super cool. We were very excited. I personally was just relieved because I've seen a lot of cases where like some small independent little indie kind of reviewer will get plucked and it'll be like, this is the best film since Citizen Kane, and then it's like put in some front of some like dog shit movie. And so I was really glad that the movie we were quoted for was good, and B, that I didn't deliver some crazy over the top like comparison that would get me would have us go viral for completely wrong reasons. So I was very excited for that. But no, it was super cool,
I
and
gotta say the
genuinely
name
this
brand
was
really helps, eh? Like if it was like
yeah.
again the Citizens Kane thing, and it was like you can always see those a mile away. It'll just be like John Smith, IdahoFilms.ca said, but at least Screen Love Affair, it's like ooh, that's got a crispiness to it. So don't sell yourself short.
I'm a bit of a brander, so yeah, we at least nailed that part. But yeah, no, to dive into the movie now. Yeah, I was super thrilled by this. So Adriana and I actually saw it separately. The first time at Fantasia, there was different screenings, and I think both of them were in. Well, at least the one I was in was not in the main like Hall H. It was
No.
in the smaller one.
Yeah,
Which,
mine was too. And both, I
in
think, had a
hindsight-
Q&A with the
Yeah.
director. Like, he was there for both,
Yeah.
which is cool.
Who was a super weird dude, by the way. I remember noting that. Artists are, special minds are the good ones. You always hear that. Definitely seems to track in my experience with this guy.
Yeah.
Super nice guy and brilliant. Like, again, the execution of some of the stuff we'll get into here. But yeah, it was wild to me in hindsight that didn't get put into Hall H or whatever, because it was a great, like, I feel like it would have even been so much better. Like, I think the reason I saw it without you was because it showed at like a weird, like during the daytime and I was off. So it was easy for me to go. But yeah, that was on a programming side, definitely, I think would have been even cooler to see with that, 7 p.m. Hall H crowd or whatever at Fantasia. But still, the crowd I had was so good. And when I come out and watch the movie and I'm sitting there like, oh, this is reminding me of how I felt at Skinamarink. This is like the quintessential horror movie experience. This is the kind of thing that I crave now. I'm so glad I got to see it at the same theater. I got to see Project Hail Mary was the AVX, but it's mastered with Dolby Atmos here at the Forum. So it was really, the kind of optimal audio experience for the film. And the fact that I had seen this before and I was still white knuckling at points of my seat and still looking for things as the camera pans across and trying to, maybe I missed something on the first one. Like, I just could not get over how much I like this movie. It is so much fun in the horror, creepy tension kind of way, which is, maybe not for everybody, but I'm really curious what this experience was like
Yeah.
for you guys.
I was a little bit worried at first seeing it again, like you, for a second time, that it wouldn't hit as hard. Like, I was like, oh man, am I just gonna, like, is there all the tension gonna be dead? But no, like, by the end of it, I was like, I was so in it. Felt the tenseness, and I could hear Sam and his like nervous giggles throughout, which was like sort of infectious because he was seeing it for the first time. And he, when the movie ended, credits rolled, and he turned to us like, "What the fuck?" Like, I was like, edge of my seat. That was like, what? How did he call it? Like cinematic, like edging or something, or
Yeah,
horror
yeah,
edging, where he was just like, it's building and building and building, and then you never get the release. Yeah, it really works, and like that climactic sequence, just so good. And
Mhm.
I want to talk about like the set design and the house and like little tidbits from the
It was the
Q&A, because
director's
like
house, wasn't it? It was like childhood home,
wild,
and he just shot what
his
he had,
childhood
and that was
home
so good.
that his parents both like kind of deteriorated in, and they
Good choice of
he
wording.
basically gave the set decorators like free rein. He was like, yeah, just change whatever you have to do, and then apparently just left it like that and lived in it, even though they had chairs on the ceiling, there was writing on the walls and stuff, and I was like, dude, you're just built different.
Did I say he was eccentric earlier when we took?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no. I'm curious, Brandon, what this was like for you, because this was your virgin voyage here for this film. You had not seen it last year, so what was your kind of experience like with it?
It was very interesting to say the least because, funny enough, as my intro alluded to, I think I may have been slightly overhyped. As a part of the brand, I expected miracles, and it delivered a lot of fun party tricks. I would say I wasn't let down, but I wouldn't say it was like a masterpiece. I definitely liked it. Like on the Hardometer, I liked it. I think it is for what it was for a $500,000 movie that made, I think, 9 million in the opening weekend. Phenomenal. I'd love to celebrate the Canadian independent success that this movie was and is still. I think it's still in a lot of theaters, competing with other bigger movies like Project Hail Mary that also take up an AVX screen. And you do want to see this in AVX as I saw it. But yeah, ultimately, there's so much good that we'll dive into. Again, this is a spoiler-free talk, so we're just gonna rip on all the things we liked or didn't like. But I would say, like, to start negatively, because I think there's a lot of positives that we're gonna go over, but just as a rip the Band-Aid off thing.
Yeah, let's fight
Uh,
about the negatives.
yeah, if I stuck you, a 6'3" large man, in a dark room and banged some pots and pans around, you would get pretty frightened. And that's kind of what this was feeling like at some moments, where it was just like the sound design was incredible, sure. But being, again, like a $500,000 low budget movie, it takes place all basically in one house. And at the end of the day, it's like the execution was phenomenal. Don't get me wrong, but I definitely think like it was verging on the most it could possibly do. How many times are we going to listen to something backwards or just wait for a bang to happen in the far back right of the theater? I wouldn't say that it was cheap jump scares. I think they're expertly engineered jump scares, but nonetheless, it is just like a nerve shredding audio nightmare. So I mean, I definitely liked it. I think I expected more out of it, hearing all the high praise and the buzz, and wanting to like it a lot. And I think that's, again, we talk about expectations all the time. I just think I was like, this is going to be, Skinamarink was a great comparison because it was such a vibe. The movie was so cozy and such a vibe that you kind of fit into it, and you're just so uncomfortable the whole time. That house and the set deck, everything about it. Every time she put her headphones on to do the podcast, I was like, I would never do that in my living room with my dying mother upstairs. Oh my God. Yeah. I kept waiting for beats where, she's hearing that banging and we're hearing that banging in the recording. And she takes off her headphones to realize it's coming from upstairs. Didn't happen. I don't know if that was better or worse, but there's moments where I felt like maybe there was going to be something that wasn't there. And then there's obviously all those like cliche for a good reason, like those horror movie moments where the camera just pans around the room and there's something in the corner of the frame. My girlfriend Renata missed so much of that. Like I would be like, do you see the old lady out of focus in the background there? Like I was always like, oh, did you catch that? So like I liked so much of this. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not coming in as like I'm underwhelmed by the undertone, but I do think like it stretches the limitations of the format that it's in, because I definitely feel like nearing the end, the ending again goes crazier and harder, but there's maybe like a middle segment where I'm like, how many times can this person who does a weekly podcast stop recording after 15 minutes and it's her only job at the moment? You know what I mean? Like there's moments like that. I think maybe because we're sort of in that world, in that space, I was kind of like, you guys would be so pissed if I was like, guys, this movie's too much to maintain right now. I got to take a break and then just fucking end call on you guys and then go mope in my bedroom. This movie, for better or worse, had a lot of A24 vibes. It works well when it does. And then there's moments where I'm like, this is just A24 vibes. So again, like I'm mixed, but largely positive, knowing the backstory, knowing what this came from. So I mean,
their release schedule definitely is confusing to me. I'll give you that one, because that was one of the thoughts that I had when they're recording. But I want to say, and this is the thing.
The 3 a.m. phone call recordings with live viewer audience.
Which, by the way, they record super late.
Well,
because
I
wish they hyped up how popular it was.
Where the guys
time distance
is in London, but at that why? And there's also the bit where he's like, "Oh shit, I gotta go to work," and
it just makes it spookier. That's the important part.
They record for like 10 minutes, and then he's like, "Oh fuck, I gotta go to work."
It's right. I remember that one.
Yeah, it's also important to denote. It's also super important, and using my Canadian heritage knowledge here, when he's like, "Don't you wish you were back in school and you could get a Waterloo sandwich?" I was like, oh, they're in like the Kitchener-Waterloo region. And he's like, I'm in London. I'm so far away. And earlier or later in the movie, when she says, oh, it's a 40-minute drive to go to that party, I'm like, oh, yeah, if you go from Waterloo or whatever to London, Ontario, I'm like, that is like 40 minute drive.
I think they meant he's in London, England.
Yeah, which makes one of the time change, but my immediate like brain.
Yeah, I
of
thought the same
it,
thing even on the second
I thought
watch.
that too.
I'm like, oh right,
So
I hit my refreshing beats. But
he did say London, I was like, wait.
Yeah, he did explain it with the time gap, but my initial hesitations were like,
I feel like though we project that because we know, like exactly, like we're Canadian Ontario, and we know this is a Canadian film. Any normal audience, broadly speaking, will hear London and assume London, England. So I think that was partly an audience thing. But no, I want to dig into this because I think this is sort of the fascinating conversation related to this movie and Skinamarink, in that these movies to me not at all are about anything to do, like the jump scares are not the point. In fact, they're almost like not necessary. They're not at all the thing that sort of like motivates me when I'm watching these movies. Like this to me is all about the atmosphere and the tension. And it's like, I don't know, and this is what I would love to unpack, and Adriana, like we experienced like Skinamarink together, and that will forever live on in my brain as one of my like all-time favorite movie watching experiences.
Same.
But I feel like it's like so much of this movie happens in your head. And the thing about this, like when Brandon was pointing out about like, oh, well, it's super interesting because, like, did you see that thing in the back? The thing that I find interesting about this movie is so often nothing is on in the back. We do a panning shot and there's nothing to see. And it's anticipation, and it builds that tension, and you're sort of like tweaking out about, okay, like you're scanning because you think there is something there, and then every time there isn't something there, you freak out a little bit. And I feel like that's the part, like it just ratchets it tighter and tighter and tighter, and without the release of a jump scare, it just continues to tighten and tighten and tighten. And so there's really really
It's
like
the edging, right? It's
yes,
just,
that's
you
like
never
Sam's
get
point
the
about
yeah.
yeah.
Cinematic
I
edging is
think
my new favorite term.
really I think I can't remember. I think it was like horror edging or something. Anyway, I think like Skinamarink, it kind of really plays on your imagination. Like, did
Mhm.
you actually see something or did you just imagine it? And a lot of the times there really isn't anything. A lot of those slow, creeping, like panning shots, you're just like waiting for it and then it doesn't come.
Mhm.
Um, phrasing. I wanted to say just while we're talking about Skinamarink, like I think like that movie, this one also seems to be getting quite a divisive response where some people watch
Mhm.
and they're like, what is this bullshit? Like this did nothing for me. And other people like us are like, oh my God, that was so scary. It was on the edge of my seat. And I do want to just go back to Brandon, your like points about it being a little maybe overhyped. I will admit up front, I am like very biased when it comes to this movie because I think seeing it as like this scrappy, like low budget Canadian indie
Mhm.
success in the context of Fantasia really made it endearing to me, and like getting all the backstory behind how it was made, and just in that context it was so effective as like a first time watch. It was like better than what I was expecting, so I just like have this residual like love, I guess, for this movie, even if I can see its flaws and like a lot of the podcasting stuff just doesn't make sense, or writing wise maybe not the best, but yeah, anyway.
Yeah, I would say this is again Renata's big takeaway when I showed her this movie. I was explaining it like, yeah, the gang left the theater at Fantasia so hyped on this, and like it wasn't as phenomenal as I thought, but I still really liked it. I see why they loved it so much. And she goes, well, yeah, you told me about like the 14 movies you saw in like 3 days. Shea saw what, 40 in 3 days? If this was right after like a foreign Taiwanese ghost story that went nowhere, or like a super low budget like schlocky pick, this is probably really good. So the context of Fantasia, also one of the best audiences you could be in, on top of maybe your bias from seeing lesser engaging movies, this would be like, yeah, a magnum opus of cinema. So that was like not like a pushback, but I also thought like that's so funny that she was so not in love with this movie, that when I was like, oh, the guys liked it, I liked it. What do you mean? And it's like, well, yeah, they saw it in one of the greatest, communities after watching a bunch of stuff that probably didn't have the same amount of like technically excellent like sound mixing or whatever. Maybe that could have been it. So I totally respect and agree with you. But I was like, I love that my girlfriend out of the theater clocked that, was like, maybe that's why they liked it
Well,
so much.
so I think honestly, after doing this now for a couple years, a couple Fantasia Film Festivals, I think by and large, I tend to overestimate about half a star comparatively. And I think that like that's been something I've seen actually rather consistent in my reviews when I revisit a movie that I had seen originally there, because I score them based on the experience, right? And in the same vein, like I did not, my score, I think same thing. There was a half-star drop, but I think that's again the experience of like if I watch Skinamarink again, I'm not going to be like, oh my God, that was exactly like the first time. Like it can't be. These movies by definition are not. You can't sort of relive them in the same way. But like I still really liked this on that like kind of second rewatch, and this is definitely the high end of the like scale for me. There are some of those beats that again, like the things that stood out to me more were again these like oddities with how they recorded, and just sort of like this weird time lapse and stuff. But like even on the pacing side, like it's I'll just like I think it's like an hour and 34 minutes, 33 minutes, something like that. I really wasn't bothered by that. I think this really is a movie that and this is not a shot at people that like don't like it as much, because like again, if you watch Skinamarink and you're like, this is the worst thing I've ever seen in my life, that's a super valid take. Like I really want to make super clear, like I totally could understand why if you watched that and you thought it was the worst thing you've ever seen, I see why you would feel that way. But it's so much about you. when you go to see a movie like this that I think is what makes this so different. And I think it's why like I adored Skinamarink and why I adored this when I got to see it the first time, is that so much like you said, like even about how Renata missed the handful of like like sort of outlines. I feel like the ones I noticed, there was 2 or 3 times where there was sort of like a silhouette of a shape, and then there was the one time, again, funny enough, I hated this, was that I pointed it out to people when they watched the trailer, but right before our quote comes up in the trailer, it was when the grandma or the mom sits up and then like turns and looks. Like, so there's so many moments where I'm like, the whole time, all I'm doing while I'm watching this movie is constantly scanning the frame. And if you're not constantly scanning the frame and you're waiting for the loud noise or the obvious jump scare, or what, like, again, modern horror cinema has sort of trained us to expect, I feel like you don't get that here, because even in the background, like, the whole point for me is that there's like 3 times where there's actually something happening in the background. But the fact that I clocked with the first one, and then now I'm like, okay, so there are things happening in the background, so I have to now pay even more attention to the background. So like, it's constantly like the experience. It's not even like passively watching a movie. It's really like getting into it and experiencing it. And I feel like, again, in the same vein, I'm very sympathetic to anybody that like has the polar opposite experience, was like, dude, I just watched like headphone sounds and weird creepy tapes and like nothing happening. But for whatever reason, that just like unlocks something in me between this and Skinamarink, where I just like, I'm like, I see so many horror movies, and I said this on Skinamarink too, but like, my grandma always talked about the original Exorcist, and she's like, bro, when I saw that movie, people were freaking the fuck out, like telling stories about like running out of the theater screaming, and like all these dramatics that I was like, that to me, when we would watch horror movies together, was sort of the feeling I was always chasing. And the fact that none of these more conventional horror movies ever come close to that, but things like this cause me to feel so tense and so uneasy and everything, like, I don't know, like, I can't explain it really, but it's just, there's something about these kinds of movies that just have a fucking magical grasp on me, that and just doesn't let me go until the credits hit, and I'm just like, oh, it's done. It's like
Yeah.
relief when it's over almost.
I think it's just that sense of dread. Like,
Mm-hmm.
some movies are very good at evoking it, and it's I think what you said about, like, it's what you bring to it is, like, really key here, because like, I don't know, it's like your mind is half the half the battle, half the fear. It's just like
Yeah.
whatever you're bringing into it, the movie is just sort of a vessel for that, like, sense of anticipation and dread and fear, and it's why I think I'll always prefer horror movies that do that well,
Yeah.
than, like, something with, like, gore or cheap jump scares or whatever it might be, yeah.
I was gonna say it's funny because there was like a recent like comic that it's like people walking into a theater. They're like, oh boy, that new movie where, you know, the paranormal antagonist is actually a metaphor for grief. You know, it's like, oh, I can't wait. And this movie kind of hits that beat, you know, be it motherhood or be it, you know, not being there for your mother. Like it's, you know, it's accessibly on the nose. Like it's not going over anyone's head. But I did kind of have that thought again, the A24 vibes where, you know, the paranormal thing is just so happened to coincide with a traumatic life experience. And based on what you talked about with the director, like this was his family home where his parents,
Uh-huh.
you know, slowly withered away. This, you can tell like where this came from. And I think that's why I feel like I'm not so hard on it, but there was a lot of things in it. Like I would call them nitpicks. And like, again, I think I want to nitpick it a bit more because I don't think I can talk about how phenomenal or exceptional it is without getting into things that piss me off. And one of them was, we talked about the panning. Um, when they did the panning so frequently, and I was like the eagle-eyed viewer finding stuff and trying to point it out to my girlfriend so she would be more like, whoa, yeah, you're right, this is spooky. It's not just loud noises in the headphones. Near the end, when things are going like batshit crazy, I think the finale really ramped up the tone and the pace of it because it was starting to get a little stale for me a little bit. But they do one shot where they're just panning through her like living room as like the lights are changing and the A24 vibes are kicking in. And they do this shot like Paranormal Activity style where they set up one of those movies where the camera's on an oscillating fan, so it just randomly looks away and looks back at you. And they did that, and there was nothing. And I was like, "Oh, you just looked away so you could continue banging sounds into the theater and freak me out more." I know that was like the gimmick
No,
throughout
but
the
see,
whole movie, but
I'm interrupting. Because this to me is exactly the point. Like the worst version of this movie is that it pans over and oh fuck, there's a monster there or some shit. The whole point, it's the anticipation, and this is what I'm like. I'm curious to hone in on this because I don't understand why that exact moment in fact impacts us completely differently. Because it's like, to me, the thing is like the panning always led to be the anticipation. There will be something, and then when it goes over and you feel disappointment when there's not, and I am now just more tense. And that to me is sort of the difference, like experientially here, that I think is what kind of dictates whether it works on you or it doesn't. And it's, again, not that you're right or wrong, because again, it's you,
no,
it's
I am right. I have
individual.
to
Like the
defend this.
movie, the movie doesn't, like, it's not like in the movie's hands to, like, if I don't feel that way, then I don't have that same experience. But like that to me was always sort of the point, was that I'm constantly looking for stuff. And that's what I think the edging comment from Sam was so apt, because it is exactly that. Like, you're constantly, okay, there will be a monster, there is no monster, but then spooky shit does happen, or that one time there was. So it gives me just enough, like, speaking only from my experience, it gave me just enough that I constantly kept looking. Like, if I looked 4 times and there was nothing, then I'd be like, okay, I'm not going to keep scanning the frame because nothing is happening. But occasionally there were things that were done, and there was even ones earlier. You said overused. I don't think the
I'm
pan
not
was
arguing
overused
it
in
the
my
whole
opinion,
movie.
but
I want to be clear. I agree with you. I'm just saying when the finale starts popping off and it is getting crazier, they do waste 20 seconds to do that with nothing. And my issue with it in the finale is that it's supposed to, like, this is shit's hitting the fan, chairs are floating and stuff. You know what I mean? This
Mhm.
was the moment to show us something, or even just like, I don't know, have a cross turn upside down slowly on the wall, just something. But in fact, like literally nothing changed. And I look away, it was to the drapes and the curtains in the living room, then back to her at the table, still being like, oh my God, I can't get back online. And I'm like, you're just padding this. Like, it didn't feel like it was adding to the tension. It just felt like it was like not giving me the finale that was like at the doorstep. And that's why, again, I agree with you. I'm not arguing the rest of the movie, because half the time when it did have something creepy, I was like, ah, yeah, okay, sick. The tension's warranted. But when it's the finale and like when the next shot is her going to the kitchen, the chairs are stacked and stuff, I was like, oh, I just wish I had a little bit more of that. I'm not saying like it bothered me the whole time. It was just in the finale, because it was like, finally we're done with just, Zoom call podcast horror. Like, let's again, when the TV screen
it's
changes to that
happening in the
creepy,
real world. It's not
yeah,
just like,
it felt like
it's not just the tapes where
the
the
threat was
creepy.
there
Yeah.
and we're wasting time to just pan away. Like, again, it was like a weird creative choice that didn't land for me. The rest of the movie was fine, but I'm just saying that one shot in the finale really kind of made me go, okay, I was really on board with this. But now that feels like you're like, oh, let's do that gimmick one more time. And okay, now we're into some creepy stuff. That's what bothered me. It
Well,
wasn't
I'm curious,
overall. It
like
was
the
just that
ending
one.
writ large, did you like that ending? Because
Not
I feel
totally.
like, well, okay, so see, this is what we were talking about, and I think that'll be a good point for you to jump in, Adriana, because I remember we talked about it coming out with Sam from the movie. But my initial take, even I remember originally, was I was sort of mixed that so much of the like violence and what happens at the very end is, it's cuts to black, it's implied, you hear it and whatnot. But, and then that same vein, like the reason I thought of that is because it sort of relates to what you're talking about, of like, you wanted, okay, now though the movie should show us things that it hasn't been showing us the whole time. And I remember we had this conversation after seeing it the second time where it's like, honestly, I kind of dig that it didn't, because it was true to the movie. Like the whole movie doesn't show, like, there's really nothing other than dream sequences, which, by the way, I definitely remember why this movie contributed to my hatred for dream sequences, because coming out of last year's
Absolutely.
Fantasia, where it
Absolutely.
has those two cop-out beats for it. But again, that even fits, like, I'm not excusing the fear, like, my point on dream sequences there still stands, but those are the only instances in the film where shit happens like that. And so for this ending to kind of like not, it felt like it matched the rest of the movie for me. And I think that, like, if it would have felt like, I feel like I would have liked it less if it then just sort of in its final act became a much more cliched, there's the monster, we see things happening, like it just becomes sort of like the MCU comparable, and it's like, and now we have the big CGI fight at the end of the film. Like, if we had the horror version of that, like, I don't know that I would have liked that either. But I will say I do feel sort of this mixed feeling of, like, dissatisfaction at the ending, because it is like, I didn't feel triumphant, but also, or like triumphant, like I didn't feel solidly about it. But in the same vein, I feel like this is kind of what these movies do. It's like what you bring to it. It's the setup. Like, I didn't feel this overwhelming sort of sense of finality. It's skinamarink either. So it's just one of those things, I think, with this like genre, if we could even call it that, because I don't know what it would be. But yeah, I don't know.
Can either of you even describe why, like, the motivation behind the demon, the possession? Can you tell me why it was going after her specifically? I feel like walking away with
He
the
was going
ending.
after her baby.
Yeah, that
Well,
was, I thought, pretty clear. I thought
Well, no,
that
I
part
mean,
was
like,
pretty
there's
clear.
those throwaway lines, not throwaway. I was trying to discuss this with Renata after, because she was like, I don't really understand, like, why her of all people. I'm like, well, they explain it's about, the Victorian woman who went after people because of her lack of children or whatever. And then there's that thing where it's like she searches up the two names, and there was two mental patients that had this syndrome, and one of them started making porcelain dolls, which I'm assuming was the porcelain doll her mom had, implying she was in the neighborhood with that woman at one point in time. Like, I feel like there was stuff that wasn't as connective to the full lore. You know what I mean? Like, because I didn't get like a full understanding of it, or it felt a little muddied in how I was trying to understand it. Just to say like, oh, it's about because she's like an unfit mom. That's why. It's like I get that, but it doesn't feel rich or meaty enough for me to really kind of like feel like I understood what was going on. I feel like it was a little muddled. Like, the atmosphere is phenomenal, but I didn't feel like I latched onto the story or the character that much, because I wish I knew more about her before this phase of life she was in. And they painted in just enough with her drinking and, like, very simple but not super deep things. And I'm not saying it need to be like overwhelmingly deep, but I just also found like part of the ending symptom for me was it was kind of like, how many coincidences are there? And they say that in the movie, like, a coincidence only feels like a coincidence because it's so randomly connected. And you know what I mean? Like, there's lines in the movie that kind of excuse it. But like, if either of you feel like you could kind of give me a lore breakdown better than my interpretation of it, I'd appreciate it. Because I feel like I wasn't super rock solid on it. And that's partially why I didn't necessarily really like fully buy in on the ending, where I was like, oh, okay, I just feel a little dissatisfied. Is that because I don't feel like I really grasped why this was happening, other than the obvious, like, the baby motherhood angle? Like, again, like, the horror is representing motherhood, like, again, that the meme I was describing, why this demon, like, when you watch Sinister, and it's about Bagul being recognized and captured, and that's causing the possession through watching the media. I was trying to compare it to that, but I felt like Bagul is explained better than was it like Azuloff or Azulot, whatever, they say it backwards so many times I forgot.
Abizu.
Abizu, yeah. So, it's like, why Abizu going after her now? Is it because of the dead mom? It's because the dead mom had the porcelain doll. Like, there's a lot of pieces in play. I just don't know if I ever got a fully satisfactory link to the paranormal haunting. You know what I mean? I don't know if I'm nitpicking something so big in the story, but I genuinely want to ask you guys, because I feel like maybe I'm just a meathead and it went over my head.
Well, I was
Uh,
literally gonna say, I think I'm having a meathead moment, because like I didn't make any of those connections that you were trying to make of like the mom and the porcelain doll, and it feels almost like you're trying to make connections that aren't actually there, because the movie's
but you
not
remember the
really.
porcelain doll in the scene where they say that the insane asylum asylum woman gave out porcelain dolls of a Mary statue with a bunch of babies crawling on it. Like, it was
Yes,
prominently
yeah,
featured. She
yeah.
put it in the closet to hide it because it was
Yes,
scaring her.
the creepy doll. Yeah, the creepy porcelain thing.
Because now it's
But
just
like,
creepy for creepy's sake.
I didn't make the connection between like, oh, her mom must have like done this. I just like didn't really think about it that deeply, which is maybe like a fault of mine, because I do think you're pointing to some like valid, maybe like plot holes, or like uh yeah, like the
Lack
movie
of connective
isn't that
tissue.
interested in going super deep. We don't get too much about the characters, and maybe that is like a fault of the movies, but I just like didn't care. Maybe this is just me. Like, I don't know if it really, the movie is that interested in creating this sense of lore to like create sequels and like create a franchise or whatever. Like, it's just kind of more chasing a feeling. And I think, yeah, you could probably say that about a lot of horror movies. Like, why is this demon or this ghost attacking this person? A lot of the time it is kind of arbitrary, right? Maybe I'm just making excuses at this point, but
No, it's fair enough. I just think if she's sitting at a computer researching the lore, and half the movie's her trying to figure out what's going on, and I still don't feel like I got a full understanding of what's going on.
Well, I think that's overstating the kind of lore in the movie. Like, it's very, I don't think for me that it was incredibly prominent. Like, I think in the same way of like Project Hail Mary, when we talked about that last time, it was like, oh, well, I didn't even think about till after you brought it up that it was like, oh, how did Rocky understand Grace? And I was like, didn't even occur to me in the moment. But I think like what was evident enough was that they give us the details of the demon, and the demon, which was the whole concept of like, it takes babies, it like lost its baby, and so now it like hunts down other babies. Oh, and she's pregnant. Perfect. That's what I needed to understand. The demon is coming for her because she has the baby and she's pregnant. Whether the mom was involved, I agree with you that, like, again, where did the doll come from? But to me, it's, did it need it, and did it add, would it have made it more conventional? And I think it would have made it more conventional if we get, again, like, for what this film was, again, I think like you gotta like accept that for what it is too, is like, they, like, when she leaves the house for the party, we don't go to the party with her. There's not that scene in the party. Like, we're confined
it's
there.
very
And
contained.
if the movie went too hard of the research, like, I felt like the research she did was like anecdotal, like 15-second bits when her co-host would like, oh, have you heard of whatever? And she like quickly would Google it so we could
The
get
amount
like
of times he
a
goes,
visual
"Did you hear
accompaniment.
that?" And I didn't hear that. I'm like, that's either expert or annoying. And I wrote that line the whole time. It's
Well,
either like,
they also played their characters, right? When she put on the like, I'm the skeptic character, and she said lines that made my eyes roll of like, but
Yeah.
again, like playing this kind of characters that they acknowledge that they're playing
yeah,
in
I
the
would
podcast recording.
I would just, like, again, I always say push back. I'm not like so passionately hating this movie. I like so much of it, but I would say I have like I wanted to get nitpicky, and I accidentally came across a big point that I felt like was a problem for me personally. Nitpicks and stuff like that. I agree. I don't think we needed to, have scenes at that house party with her ex-boyfriend who she lived with in a long-term relationship that she just ghosted out of nowhere. But I did, again, like, I would have liked to know this character to understand her better in this state that we found her in the movie, because it's like, she's pregnant, but she hasn't been living with him for like 6 or 7 weeks, they said, or something like that. And I don't know about you, but I've never like just broken up with somebody and not texted them, or not broken up, like stay dating somebody where they text you, "I love you," and you just go and walk away. So it felt a little odd in that sense, where it's like, again, I'm not saying like, oh, I really wanted 20 extra minutes of her backstory, but considering how much time is spent with her on phone calls and stuff, I really feel like they could have worked in a little bit more lore for her, not just like the demon, but like there's some stuff that just made me wonder, what are the logistics to her being here right now? How long has she been here? When they say, I think it was like 6 weeks or something, that's how long she's been apart from her boyfriend, and she just found out she's 7 weeks pregnant. Like there were some lines in there, and I was paying laser
I
attention to
think
these
they
things.
make it pretty clear that like she's there for her mom and is like doesn't want to leave, is very like committed to the palliative care, and like the boyfriend just like doesn't really want any part of that, and so that's what created the sort of distance. But my sense wasn't that they were like broken up for 7 weeks. It was that they were still technically together. It was just kind of like stagnant because she was like preoccupied with caring for her dying mom, and the boyfriend just like didn't really care that much.
Yeah, I
Um,
just oddly convenient that I guess she got knocked up the last time they were intimate, which is right when her mom or when she moved out. Like,
well,
Well, but
maybe they
again,
okay,
I'm
fucked
but
at
what
that
nitpicking,
party. You don't know, like.
yeah,
But like, yeah,
yeah,
that's
fair.
what I kind of getting at is like I don't understand to what end this would have added to all of the good parts about this movie. Does this prevent the movie maybe from being in this sort of I'm trying
Better?
to think of no, not a better, because I think you to get what you wanted, you would have had to add 10 to 15 minutes to this movie. And I think that makes the movie itself completely worse because I think it removes a lot of the like if I followed her to that party, the movie would have been worse. Like, and I don't mean just for 5 minutes of a party sequence. If I left that house, the movie would have been worse for what it was. And I think this is the difference between like all of what you're saying is correct in the sense that like I didn't feel some sort of like emotional satisfaction at the end of the movie. Like this was like a ride. It was an experience. It was that tension. And I really loved that for that being what it was. I don't think you're wrong to say as sort of like a coherent movie. Like I didn't feel emotional at all about the
Yeah,
ending. I didn't feel like incredibly emotionally connected to her character outside of the palliative relationship. Which again, like partly it's hard for us to disconnect this because like that was the whole point for the director. So like, okay, that to me was the most prominent part. It was the most relevant part and it served like its sort of purpose there. But like, yeah, I'm trying to like kind of figure this out in real time with you because it's like I understand what you're saying. Like the 5-star kind of I'm
blown
not
away
trying to like
reviews, I don't
overstate
quite
it,
get. Yeah,
but
it's a
not
great
even that.
ride,
Like,
but it's not a great
right, but
film.
it's a
And
ride that I
yeah,
loved, but it had this like, do I compare it to sort of like it's again totally different movie, but I'm trying to think of like horror movies like that where like Hereditary had I was much more invested in those characters and the
yeah,
family and the
yeah,
dynamics and
100%. This could have
as
been
a
like that.
sort of as a story. And this is where I think film is always really fascinating to me as someone completely uneducated in creating it and even like historically, is where like I would have put before and still to this day, I put so much weight on script and story. Like, is there a narrative here? Is there a story I can follow? Does it hit all those beats? And movies that I love, like Project Hail Mary last week, have even basic level Top Gun Maverick, very basic level stories, but ones that feel wholly complete and satisfactory. Now, film, but definitionally, does not have to have that. It does not have to have this sort of cohesive, fulfilling story. And that, like Skinamarink, like explain to me the lore of Skin. I have no fucking clue, dude. I don't know shit about that. I
I
don't
couldn't
know
even tell you
anything.
the plot like fully.
Yeah,
Like, you
exactly.
know.
Like, but like again, that's and it's not to disregard the feedback because it's like you're right. Like to be super clear up front, you're right. But it's like, did I need this for this movie for this experience? No, I did not. And I think that like I don't know what the sort of difference is that where like one experience is one way and again it's like what we bring I guess as audiences, but like to me it's sort of like watching like Top Gun Maverick. If Top Gun Maverick was just strung together, and I hate that that's my reference point for everything, but I love it.
Yeah, if this A24
Like,
indie movie was more like Top Gun Maverick, this is how
but
it would
no.
differ.
But like, listen to
I
what
know,
I'm
I know.
saying
I'm
on the
just busting
form
your
here.
chops.
If Top Gun Maverick was only the plane scenes, and everything else about those characters was implied only through conversations we could have in the planes, and it was all in the IMAX frame and shot that way, I would feel differently about that movie. I'd be like, it was an amazing technical spectacle and filmmaking wise, it was super cool to look at and blah, 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 blah. Would I love that movie as it's like the way I do now? Absolutely not. Because the story in that movie and the characters in that movie are what I love and remember so much and enjoyed so much. But it doesn't take away of the sort of technical thing. And I think with this indie film, I think the issue is that this is really much more focused on, again, that kind of grief process and turning that into this horror experience. And so to me, I think without question, the movie accomplished that for me. And that's why I would give this a love rating. Now, is there an alt version of this movie that maybe was more fleshed out or had all those details that I also love? You know, probably even, I would say. Like, there is a way to make that character who, like our main character, very sympathetic and very someone you really care about and are interested in and understand the complexities of their personal situation. But would that have come at the lot? Like, it's, you know, it's a lot of speculation, I guess, all that to say. But I totally hear what you're saying. I think just for me, it was more of like, that's not what this was, I guess, to try and distill everything, because I'm just running stream of consciousness here. But would that have changed the movie? I think fundamentally, and I think for the worse, in my opinion. But that's not to say that, like, yeah, like her care, like, again, I didn't care really about the outcome of the movie. I cared about it as the experience of I was tense and whatever. And then if she dies at the end, which it seems to imply that she did, like, yeah, I didn't really feel a whole lot about that.
Yeah.
And again, to the movies, like, would it have been better as an experience if I could be like, yeah, dude, I can't believe, or they did that and it was shocking? Like, yes, I do agree. But I think it wasn't to the difference between me of like, it doesn't make me not enjoy, I guess, that's that whole kind of tension of the movie less because it was missing. It just doesn't feel as like complete as a whole that way. I don't know. I'm going to
Yeah.
stop because I think that's my my rant, but I love this free flow of this because I
All
think
right.
really
Well,
it's fascinating.
I would just say, like, I'm glad you agree with my 500 IQ take that this movie could have been better. No, I'm kidding. I'm gaslighting you, but genuinely though, again, we agree with each other. I think we're just coming from polar opposite ends. I'm Diet Coke and you're Pepsi Max here. So what I'm talking about this though is,
Fucking love Pepsi, dude.
I really did enjoy the movie. I really liked it. And I think, like, when we were talking about the Hereditary thing, this is so close to that with crazier, more thrilling audio engineering and stuff like that. Like, again, it is so good at what it's doing. I wish it paid a little more attention to the other things that I wanted from it. And when I say this, it's mostly because when you take the amusement park home, when you take the arcade onto a console and put it in your living room, the staying power or the strength of the movie won't be there. People are not going to be watching the screen. They're going to be looking at their phone. They're going to miss the creepy stuff in the background.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to have the Dolby ABX sound. So again, it's like, I want to celebrate and be with you, being like, yeah, what it was enough for me. And in the theater it was. But as we left the theater and we're discussing it and talking about who would we recommend this to, realistically, not like, I know this is, you just wash this away and say, oh, any streaming recommendation is a bad one, but who do we recommend this to when it's accessible for the people who don't rush out to every theater movie right now? And it was like, well, yeah, I don't know if like ex friend of mine would like this because, you know, the thrill ride is lost when it gets scaled into your living room. So the criticism I'm having is not from like this like Redditor of like, I really think they could have done more with the character development, which is definitely how I'm sounding. But I just mean it like, you know, it could have been elevated with a few little tweaks or a few more lines that I thought we were missing. We talk about the ending too. Straight up, man, I was so hoping the mom died when she fell out of bed and she went to that party. Like Hereditary, kill that bitch off mid-movie and let that be way creepier. And now there's like a literal ghost type thing. And a better ending in my head is like a professional armchair quarterback writer here would have been, she did die there. The ghost, Abazul, was like possessing the corpse. So when she checks on her breathing and stuff, that's she's hearing her breathing. It's an auditory thing because she's always listening for that death rattle. So it would have been so much more clever if she was like only hearing her breathing and for the death rattle, not hearing it. She's been long dead halfway through the movie. And the reveal at the end was like she had been dead since that party. The ghost took her in the night and has been possessing her. But like, chills on my spine. That would have been like, oh, what a good little twist, gut punch. But instead it's just like, your mom's dead. Sorry, sweetheart. Grief is here. Enjoy your grief. So I don't know. Again, like I liked it. It could have had some small swings to really elevate it for me personally, because I want to keep championing this movie. But outside of the theater experience, as a cinephile, as an audio guy, I was just like, I don't
I'm
know if
not
this is
gonna
going to land.
touch your rewrite, but I'm gonna say on that note, like I think that's a good thing. I disagree with you in that that's a bad. I think it's good that this movie is not for people at home, and I
Yes.
think it's so rare to get a movie that is like, no, you should go see this. Ideally in Dolby, like go like the fact that the movie hinges so much on sound is something so unique. Like I can think of a lot of great movies that had good sound design or like effective
Mm-hmm.
sound design as far as horror goes, but where so much of the horror comes from just the auditory landscape that it creates, I think that's so cool. And I think it's to the movie's benefit that it's not going to appeal to people who are at home on their second screen. Like, I think those people
Yep.
should not watch this movie, and
I'm going to
like
watch
fuck
this with
them.
subtitles
Like,
when it comes out on streaming. And I want to piss
Well,
everybody off.
so yeah, I'm also not going to
I
talk
agree,
on
though.
Brandon's script for The Conjuring 19, but what I will say is I have two things, and one, I'm curious because I find this is going to be an interesting beat for you guys. What do you all think? I hope neither of you know. What do you guys think Kevin thought of this movie?
I don't think you liked it.
yeah, I think he probably didn't like it.
He
I
loved
think
it.
he was mid. Oh, really?
Okay.
He loved
Oh.
it. 4
he's
stars
so-
on Letterboxd.
He's so
Kevin from the
unpredictable,
podcast.
that guy.
Yeah, I know, dude. I know.
He's my favorite
I honestly,
Letterboxd.
because I was with you, I would have bet that he wouldn't have liked it either, but he did. So once again, Kevin the Enigma still reigns. But related to him, when I was arguing with him about this, I was getting my hair cut, and I was arguing him about like are you gonna go see Undertone? It's playing in Dolby and the whole thing. He's like, I think I'm just gonna wait and watch it with headphones at home. And I was like, oh,
It's not a bad
but
take.
but this is no. He's right but wrong. I was like, go see it in theaters, go to the Dolby one and watch it there.
Yeah.
But if you are going to watch this at home, if you don't have a good theater, again, I would argue even any theater is probably better than that. But I do think that if you have a decent pair of over-ear headphones, watch this with headphones at home. If that's your option, you can connect them to your TV, wire them
Lights
in, whatever
off,
on a
all
monitor.
alone.
But
yeah,
set the ambiance. Yeah, make sure your microwave light is like put tape on it or something.
You know what? To like take back and immediately backpedal my not for home streaming, I would say if you are a streaming person but you want to get the maximum value, exactly that. Watch it on your 15-inch
watch it with
MacBook at your
headphones.
kitchen table with some nice noise canceling headphones, one overhead light at your dining room,
noise
everything
canceling.
off.
Ooh,
Sit in
I
a
like
wood
that.
chair bent over and watch this, and like try not to like jump out of your skin thinking, oh my god, that banging is coming from behind me, because that would honestly top the theater experience. I think this is actually
Yeah.
the preferred method, not on a TV screen, but like laptop, wired, heavy ass noise canceling headphones. You will be looking behind you the whole night.
Alone in the house. Hopefully, you
Halloween
have a big house that
challenge.
you can be alone in.
Oh yeah, not a condo. You got to go rent a mansion on Airbnb by yourself. Perfect. That's a better
Yeah,
horror
okay,
movie
so just
idea
let's
right
run
there.
through this. The optimal way to see Undertone is by renting a big house, going there alone, setting your laptop up with great noise canceling headphones, and just watching the whole
also
movie there.
has to be somewhere isolated. Turn off all the lights in the home, but
Yeah.
open the
Yeah.
curtains. So
And preferably,
there's
if you
just
have a loved one that needs hospice
wilderness.
care, fly them in and they can go to the second floor bedroom, and make sure their heart rate monitors and stuff are cranked to the max. So when you do hear it, it's extra freaky.
I feel like anything else I add to this is going to devolve this bit, so I'm gonna call it there. But I do want to say I fucking adored this conversation about this movie. Like
Yeah.
for us to contrast, like we talked last about Project Hail Mary, where there was just this like uniform agreement and like adoration for a film, and again, still a movie that now we all like and we all really appreciate, but impacted. Like we had a different experience notes. And I really love that, like, this conversation to me is so fascinating because, like, again, I'm really interested, and I find it fascinating that we can all of us watch the same thing like this, like Skinamarink, and can have, not even just varying, like, completely different experiences, but even like where they run across the whole thing. Like Brandon, like, kind of falls in between, like, me who adored this, and then people that are like, I fucking hated this and it totally sucked. And then Brandon have somewhere like more in between that. That is fascinating to me. And I think that's like the other end of this that I find like so great about movies and cinema, is that we have those like universal crowd pleasing great movies that everyone can watch and love if they're not nihilistic assholes. And then you have something like this where there's completely different varying ranges of reaction to the same experience. Like, that to me is always like, it's the thrill of the hunt. That's why I will always watch shit. I know, again, I've bagged them already in 2 episodes now back to back, but again, my friend Nick Chepley being like, you go see everything, you don't care if it's good or bad. I'm like, no, I go because I hope that I like everything, but I'm fascinated to see, like, it's the thrill of the hunt. And like, I always talk about Splitsville. Like, Adriana and I saw Splitsville. Like, that was a total, like, I don't know any, like, main actresses that are the only known quantities for me. Like, had no expectations, no hopes. One of my favorite times at the movies, without question. And Undertone, similar vibe both times. I was so glad to share this experience with complete strangers the first time and get to sort of relive through Sam on the second one. And I think this is what movies is all about.
That's what
And
it's
I
all
would just
about.
add, this is what the Screen Love Affair podcast is all about, all right? Talking about this shit when it's done, about loving it when we love it, bitching about it when we hated it. God damn, I love movies. God damn, I love the Screen Love Affair podcast. With that said, guys, follow the podcast, like this episode, share it with your friends, join the crew. I love Wesley Willis. I don't have my Screen Love Affair merch on like Brandon. I'm a terrible host. But no, if you like what we're doing here, and if you enjoy movies even half as much as we do, join the Screen Love Affair experience, and maybe you'll love movies just a little bit more.